we're going to get this Coda Meetup started. This is the first meetup of 2020 for Coda. My name is Al Chan. You probably got what you guys over the last few weeks. And I'm actually the only New York State employee. This is Coda NYC headquarters, if you will. And I work on, and I work on the 10th floor here. And last year I did a few meetups here, and they weren't really Coda specific. They were a little more like just indie hackers, you know, people working on cool ideas. And I decided to kind of pivot into more like Coda specific meetups, which is what this is going to be about. So just about Coda. If you came from meetup.com, I'm also co-organizing like the no-code New York City meetup, which is like next week. Which is going to be more generic, all about no-code, working with other tools and platforms. But this meetup is specifically about Coda. And we have two Coda makers here who are going to be presenting their docs to you all. And afterwards, I'm going to walk you guys through some new features in Coda, and also some stuff that's coming in the pipeline that like no one has seen yet, and you guys will be one of the first ones to see, which hopefully is pretty cool. Yeah, any questions about today? Yeah, so after they speak, I'm going to walk you guys through it. Hopefully, once you go to your laptops, I can walk you through how I can some of the new features. Since it's a relatively small group, why don't we just quickly go through the tables and say who you are, where you're from, and maybe like your experience using Coda, if you're a beginner, intermediate, or if you're like a power user. So I'll start with myself. My name is Al. I'm with Coda. And I will turn to a power user because I have worked here. But no, honestly, like before I actually joined Coda, I was a super active user of Coda for about a year. And I was really active in the community forums, showing bids. And eventually I was like, hey, what if I can work for you guys? And that's kind of how I landed my role in Coda about a year, 2 years ago. And so that's kind of my background here.
Hey, I'm Greg Jarmiolowski. I'm new to New York. I've been here about 2 months, and this is my only Coda doc that I've ever done, and I did actually but I'm a professional programmer in my
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm also a executive, so I won't say too much, but I'm from Connecticut, moved to New York. On Coda, I'm a very beginner, so I'm basically, when I do my presentation, it's going to be more of the context of what I want to do with Coda, and hopefully we can experiment with what's possible.
I'm John. I work in construction management industry, and I do a lot of Excel scheduling stuff, so I was trying to figure out new, easier solutions to, achieve, to get like scheduling results on the data set. So I was discovering and checking the products online, and then I ended up finding Coda. And I wanted to come and see what else I can do with my knowledge. Let up how to use it.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I work for a customer startup, and I'm on the product team. And in Japan, there's a lot of processes that are very manual and spreadsheets, and trying to figure out how to make that easier for our team.
Hi, Al. I'm Hannah. I'm a product manager. So another recommendation to me, I just created my first doc and I did production.
John, I found out about Coda through one of the level developers. It's a no-code platform that I've been using, but I really want to learn more. I used to use Excel
from Ireland. I run fluenttournaments.com. It's a very large language learning website, and I with a background in engineering and like databases and organizing information. I've been using Coda for about a year, I think. Mostly the templates that you guys put up, I like track my learning projects. The best use I've had was a document I made myself to help coordinate with amicable course I'm going through, and it was actually very helpful that in a glance she can see where we're at, and the boxes have been ticked, and she can change information to see how things have changed over time, and it's helped to smooth something that's very complicated.
You give a business right there, man. Just agree to use this template.
Yeah, we'd love to, I mean, if you're open to maybe next month you want to present that.
Probably change a few of the details, sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So pretty wide variety here. And yeah, I'm going to let Greg take it away with his use case, his story, and then also the doc that he has been working on.
Cool. Can y'all hear me okay? Yeah, you hear me? Quick bit about me, Greg Jarmiolowski. The name looks sharp, something like that. 20 years experience as a programmer. I started with Oracle, and I'm still with Oracle. Along the way, I found a product called Application Express that was sort of a little bit like the ideas behind Coda. It was like a lot of drag and drop kind of stuff, and I decided to specialize in that. And I'm writing a book. It's just at the beginning called How to Think Like a No-Coder. The idea is to help people think through their problems and understand how to get into where you have something that is in maintenance mode and you have a production environment and you need to how to test it, how to have how to make it professional is really the idea. But I want to know what people are looking for so that I can have a better idea about what is right.
One last minute thing, if you guys want anything to drink, there's beer and waters over there. In the back, there's a square on the parking lot. So this logistics.
So my document is called Mybnb, and it started as an interview exercise for a job at Coda. And the prompt was create a document to help somebody manage one or more Airbnb properties. And that was all I got. So I just called up everyone I knew that did anything with Airbnb and kind of got an idea of what I wanted to build and what they needed to track. And so what I track here is all of your properties, and underneath all of your properties you have rentals, which could be like I have a building and I have 3 rooms in it. And then I have service providers who might come in and clean it, and then I have bookings that come in. And from all of that, it just comes together. Here's my quick start guide. So if you were to just copy this and you want to use it yourself, although it's got some bugs and we'll see them in a minute. I really like this feature where I can just dock into my document links that take me to sections over here. So it's like a really quick way to provide a style guide for your document. So if you wanted to get started really quickly, you go here and you add properties and rentals. Add rental unit and then add booking. So let's look at properties. So here's my demo data. I've got 3 properties. And then within those properties, I have multiple rental units. And then I added a column for the cleaning costs so that every time I clean the unit, I can just drop in an automatic account. And we'll see later that one thing that I haven't solved is how to deal with when I get a booking coming from Airbnb. How do I put in the correct price? Because the pricing, it's not something that I can just hard code in my document because it's actually something that I manage for an Airbnb. Airbnb is where I'm going to say that's what this is worth. And their pricing engine is going to help me to tell her my pricing, so my pricing will fluctuate over time. And there's no way that I can see right now for me to track that inside Coda. So as a booking comes in, I have to type that in. So the basic connection to get a booking is inside a table called event log. And alt text for all the colors, but also put in all the colors. So inside your event log, you're going to have everything that happens either in rentals or housekeeping. There's also a couple different components. I have like services, like I can put in a record for an electrician that came out or a plumber or some kind of maintenance. And the reason I put that all in is so that we have one core table that has everything that's either a cost or money coming to me, so that then I can go back and I can look at it and see income and expenses. I think it's maybe a limitation of Coda that maybe they've overcome, or maybe I just understand it, because if I want to record, it's a view, and it's always on one table. So in order for me to have a summation of all of the dollars have to be the same table. So that's why the event log has both bookings and housekeeping and maintenance and everything else. So to get around that, I created a view of the event log that's just bookings. And I created another view that's just services. So there's different tabs, but they're all really relying on the exact same core data. And they do that through filters. You can see I have some filters here. So here I'm just saying only everything that's a service. And in bookings, I have a more complicated filter that's saying it has to be a rental and the booking has to be checked. The booking is like one column, and it's just a yes or no. And it comes about in here where I can add data to this, and then when I click add booking, it puts in the value of that checkbox, and then that makes it available to the next step. So instead of having like, I can have a table and I can have automation that would come and say every time I change this table, they'll take that record and put it in another table. But instead of doing that, I just said I'm just going to have a bunch of flags, and I now have 4 or 5 different views of the same table. So everything that you see in home base, for the most part, runs off that one event log table. Please stop me with questions. I don't want to go too fast. So this is kind of conceptually what it looks like. I got a property at the top, and you can have rental units. And I have service providers. And I have event types, and they all look like that one. So as I was doing the development, I really there's a couple really cool things in Coda. So I can do this with a team of people, and so I'm getting feedback as I go through the process with the people that give me the requirements. So we started with a requirements document, and then as I completed things, I just started to strike them out. And then as I came up with issues, we can just log them as another document. And here you can see the issues I'm having right now. And so this is the biggest issue right now. I just felt. So with Airbnb, you can set up a property and you have 3 rooms. And you can say it's possible to rent each room. You can also say it's possible to rent 2 rooms together, or all 3 of them. But the way that I have it, I have a property that has separate rooms, and I don't have a way of keeping track of if you rented the entire property all in one swipe. I had an email problem I never fixed. And then in the calendar import, the way I built it originally was I used Zap. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Zapier. So Zapier is just like the API is like Wonderworld. Like you just go and you can just grab data from this place and shove it over to this place. And then I just started today to try to convert it to the built-in Coda Google Calendar package. And I'll show you how this works. I can go into my calendar and I created a place where I can just add a booking. I can say it's for these days, and I can say it's here in Mybnb. I've got a table that shows all of my Google Calendar imports. I should be able to come in here because I don't have a version, I have to sync it separately. So as we get done with the sync, we should get a new row. Okay, so I got a new row, and you can see the import is blank. So I have another step that will take this new row, and if imported is blank, it'll take it and add it to my event log table, and then that did was it put it over here in my new bookings. But here's my bug. It created like a copy of myself. So that's what I'm working through right now. But the automation should work where as long as you're connected to your Airbnb to your Google Calendar, every time you get a booking from Airbnb, they will send you an email, which will be a calendar invite. And if you get a calendar invite and you put it in the calendar that you said is the one that you want Coda to specifically look for, it'll grab that information for you. It only grabs a little bit, so there's not too much use. This is the Google Calendar. It gives you an event name. So I'm looking for test was my name. And the end date, the start date, and then the attendees would be a list of email addresses. And I haven't parsed them out yet, but the next step would be to get the email addresses and be able to email my house rules, which is another part of my whole thing here. So in each of my properties, I can find my way around that thing here. I have properties, and I have a link to the rules. And that is a document that is over here. Look at that point. So the idea is I have a button you can push. It'll take all the email addresses that are on that booking, grab this document, and send them an email that says, I have you coming to stay in whichever name it is, the Quaint Victorian, from this date to this date. And you can type in whatever you want, and then it'll also throw them this house rules document as an email.
So Airbnb doesn't give you
Airbnb won't give you the rules, I don't think. But Airbnb isn't going to give you, like, you can't track inside Airbnb what you had to pay for your cleaning service. It just says cleaning service is cleaning fee, right? So there's like a $30 cleaning fee, $40 cleaning fee. But you don't have a way to keep track of that as far as I know. So that was one of my issues today was my calendar inventory. It keeps on adding too many. And another issue is like if they cancel the booking, what do I do? Like, do I have to do it automatically through some kind of calendar to delete it? Or do I have to come in manually to Coda and say this booking is now canceled and then unwind all the steps that I've taken, which is only like 3 or 4. So I just put it in sections so you can like navigate, and it all comes up through. There's a document at the very top that kind of shows you how. There's the quick start guide which I showed you at the beginning. You just go into properties, you create a booking, but the section overview gives you a little bit more information about what each of these do. What's a booking? How does it? How do you create it? How do you manage it? And then you get to this part where it gets like really good. At the end of it all, you can run these reports and charts so you can see like, I had a good month in February on my Queen Victorian Old Town, and these are all slept. So I can turn one off. There's some really cool tools in here, but I had to get around some limitations. The first one that I found was that all of the reports had to be based on one table, so I had to figure out how to make one big table do more than one thing.
We can potentially make one big table in a separate section and have that hidden, but then show parts of that table in individual sections.
That's kind of what I'm doing. So, like, the bookings table has that filter that just says, it has to have an event type that says rental, and it has to have a booking check. And so that puts it into this view. And then the add new booking is very similar, but it has a filter that says the booking check is not turned on. And then the button just turns on that button. So I'm just using flags to kind of say each view has its own set of filters that are based on those flags.
Yeah, the filter is just what you're seeing, but the graph can still pull the data.
Yes. Yeah. So these graphs are kind of like everything. It's easy because a booking is plus and a housekeeping is a minus. So I just say sum, and it just always gives me the correct sum. But I can also parse them out. I think I have a good expense chart here. This one doesn't parse them out. It does give it to you by where it came from though. And it also is a free criteria. And these are, customizable. You can go in here and you can mess around with all this stuff. So, I don't know, some people here have never things. You have tables and cards and calendars and charts, and there's like 5 different chart types, so it's very much like Excel. You just give it a table and you say, I want to view it in this way. And so I can take the exact same table and say, I'd like to now see it as a calendar. And so here I can look at February and I can see my booking. And it also has one thing that Excel doesn't have built into it. It has, I can say Control Tab Spacebar. It has built-in forms, and you can customize these forms as well. So you can, if you want to give this to a set of end users, they have the power to play around with the forms that they want, but you can also say, this is the default, this is how I like to have those forms. And this is maybe a cleaner way to do data entry, especially when your tables get really long and you have to start scrolling across. That was fast, but I just wanted to kind of show you what was here so we have time for any kind of questions.
So I guess the first step in using the Coda workflow is like integration of one of the apps and maybe this sort of integrates with Jira or Slack. Is that what you're saying? Is it starting point for this business?
For me, I looked at what the starting point would look like in terms of what that integration piece would give me. And I also looked at what columns do I really need. So I know that Airbnb is going to give me a start date, an end date, and a name, and some attendees. But what else do I need? And so I created that table as my own table without worrying about the integration piece. I just said, okay, I'm going to create my table in front of there, started building my own thing. And I started with a table that was bookings and a table that was services, and then I realized that I had to refactor it all onto one table, which means now I'm adding more columns. So I have lots and lots of columns in the event log. I have like who's the provider of this if it's a service, and I have a cost, and I have a guest, and I have check marks that say, have I done this thing to it? So I would start with just like that base idea of like just what's my core little chunk of data that I need to keep track of, and then think about the integration as like, okay, what can the integration really like plug into it? But you don't have to start with the integration. But you wouldn't want to like have to wait for the integration to get started. Because code is really easy. You just hit plus, 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 and then you have a table, and you start adding columns to it. And so that's fun. Whereas the integration piece gets a little bit less fun because you're like monkeying around with like, how do I map this column to this column, and then I have to go create dummy data over in this other service in order to actually make the integration work. And that's a hard part with these kind of tools because you might not have a development environment where you can play with things like, oh, the data might be live. So it's hard to create dummy data inside something like Airbnb, for instance. So, it's nice to have like an intermediary where it's like, okay, I can play with my Google Calendar and I can throw in stuff there because I don't really care. It's not like my production environment, it's just me, and I can just create a calendar and throw stuff in there. So, one way to think about it is you could say, just create a bunch of tables that would be sort of like the entry points for your eventual integration, so that you still have room to play with Coda and get familiar with the formulas and things like that.
So the services you insert is also a line item on your events log?
Yes. Yeah,
So
in
as
services,
your bookings?
I would just go here, and I can just say I want to add a new one. And it was on this day, and then on this day I did it to, whatever property I did it to, and I could say it was housekeeping, and cleaner one was the person who did it. And if I did it correctly, which I did, it would have populated, I had a function that would have populated our housekeeping. It looks like I failed.
That goes to the events log, right?
And then that would go directly into the it's like 115, efficiency in here. 115 is my housekeeping. And one thing that I didn't figure out is how to lock this down. So like here, I can go in and I can change the value. And you should see it reflected back over in But like to have sort of something that you want to make in production, you might want to like lock down that field so that people can only edit it in certain modes and in certain instances, rather than have it like flow through to like the fifth place and you see it and you change it and it propagates, and then it's for sort of data, sort of sanity.
Not to give read and writes.
Yeah, and that might be like a paid feature, I think, or even like lock things down. Hello.
I'm TJ from Spotify. Sorry.
All right.
What
Yeah.
other functionalities like to help you with, for example, like to use Excel or some other sort of sheets before?
You know, I'm a long time Excel user. I started with 1, 2, 3, I've been around a while. But to do this, I never touched a spreadsheet. Like my whole goal was to just get into Coda and learn it, and you know, use the forums and all the other kind of things. If I had a request for help, if I tried, you know, because it was an exercise for an interview, I tried to just involve it. I didn't get the job, but it's okay. I learned a lot, and I see the power of Coda, and I can see how it contrasts with something like Bubble, and where one might shine on the other requirements.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Like, I see it, and I see like what it does better than Excel. I'm like in my mind, I can't like picture something that I would like use and be like, oh yeah, that's perfect. I just don't have an understanding of it.
From what I see, it's mostly the fact that Excel is an awful lot general. Like he's integrated with Airbnb, which is pulling in data from that through the calendar and so on. So you can very simply maintain this whole system, even though a lot of it is automated. Whereas in Excel, you have to manually put in a lot of things. You can create formulas, but you still ultimately have to be the person entering the data because you pull the data in from external sources.
Gotcha. And you said that was like the big challenge that you're having now is like pulling the prices from the rentals from Airbnb?
Yeah, no one was ever able to give me like a real email from Airbnb. I figure it probably is generated from a template, and once you can conceive of what that template is, you could get a text parser function within Coda to say, find the price, find the name, all the little bits that you need to turn the data. Theoretically, you can turn them out if you need to.
From an email?
From an email, yeah. I mean, in text field, Coda has so many functions. You do it like with all kinds of weird nestings, but you would be able to say like, this is always going to be where there's a $sign. So find the first $sign, and then from the first $sign, go to find the first letter. That's my amount.
Doesn't that come through like as a confirmation to someone who is like renting?
Yes. But I want to get it here, and I want to get it as a data element. I want it as a column in a spreadsheet. I don't want just like this big blob of text. And all I'm going to get is a big blob of text from the calendar integration. If there's another integration with Airbnb that I don't know of, yeah, that would solve my problem. But I also don't rent Airbnb, so this is a hobby project now. I would say, like for Excel, like the biggest difference that is the most powerful part about just using this over Excel is that when you're in Excel, like I've had this with so many clients where they have a column, it's a formula, and someone has gone through, like maybe that's formula's been pasted down 500 rows or whatever, you know, and then they go in and then they don't like a number, and then they put in something new.
So it's that.
Yes, and there's no way to know. Like, there's no way to know that a formula has changed. There's no way to know that this column always exists as one formula, whereas in Coda, it's always that way. If I create a formula for a column, I define the column as that formula, and it does the calculations for me.
No one can mess it up.
No one can mess it up.
Gotcha. Okay, that's
Like that.
that's
Just it alone right there is so powerful because I have clients that do that where they don't understand that if they hide the decimals, that it doesn't actually round the numbers when they do the sum of it in. And so I had a client where every month they would give me a spreadsheet and it would be off by $3. It was always off by $3 because that was exactly what their rounding error was. And even though the finance person gave it to me, the finance person wasn't competent enough in Excel to figure this problem out. And so if you have this, I mean, no one can mess with this. So you're sure that that's not going to get messed with, which could be fatal in some instances, really.
That makes a lot of sense.
Cool. Well, thanks, Greg. Share your doc.
Yeah.
next up. Very different use case, and I'll let you.
You want to
take it.
switch? Or you want to sit in there?
Yeah, can you move it to the, I'm gonna
Go in the hot seat.
So the use case is, it's called the First Features. It's something I started in school. Let's see. This is just a 3-minute little trailer for what it is, and then I'll talk about it. So it's called First Features, and it began as a way for me to learn more about film. I was in my first year at the New School MA in Media Studies program. I had a background in visual arts and drawing growing up. Thank you. And TV production. If anyone's gone to film school or you know anyone's gone to film school, what you do is you watch a lot of like scenes from movies and you talk about them. So whenever I was introduced to a film outside of what I grew up watching, which was like Goodfellas, Italian American, or Casino, or like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, or like Office Space. I was really interested in like learning filmmakers that I never heard of or never knew existed. So like when I saw like Wong Kar-wai, who's this Chinese filmmaker, I was like, who the hell is this? And like he's like writing the script like while he's making the movie, and he's using like people he knows as actors. And so it was like a combination of learning about the new directors and new films, but also about like the processes that I wasn't aware of. Because like growing up, like I guess a lot of us watch movies that are pretty much like Hollywood type movies, and they're all sort of a similar way. So I basically wanted to learn more about more films, and so at the new school. Okay, so at the new school. Sorry, I'm a little sick, so my brain's not 100%. But so this was at the new school. In my first year, I found out that there was no like regular screening series, which I thought was kind of crazy because it was like an old school film program. We still had film cameras. We were shooting on film, learning about film. So I tried to start one, and basically they told me that I couldn't do it because, like, you know, I was just like, I'd love to use your theater to show films, and they were like, yeah, sure, like come back when you have this kind of like mapped out. So I went for a couple semesters, and they kept turning me away and saying they were busy. So I was working in the film office, and I had a key to a room. So we started with launching the first film, which was Citizen Kane, which was like the most famous first film. First Features, by the way, is the first film of a director. So when I'm in school, we're all trying to make our first feature. Essentially, we're all like young. So to study the early ones was important. So this was me at the first event, and that's with Orson Welles. We had an impersonator. He was signing autographs. We had bourbon. There was cupcakes and popcorn. And I got the films from the New York Public Library. You can get, at this time, this was 2009, you can get the films. They would let you take them out. They don't do it anymore, but you can take out 16mm films. So we had a projector. This was the room that I just had a key to because I was working in the film office. So we started in here with just a few people that I invited, and this was the program I just put up on the walls in the university. And we had like, you know, a handful of people. Eventually it became a screening series that was monthly. We would show the director's first feature, but before that they would be introduced by students or alumni from the university. I introduced the first 4, and I did the research on the people, and I was kind of passionate about the people that I picked. And then I was kind of like, this is a lot of work, so I needed help. So I asked my colleagues, what do you recommend? And this is when it kind of took off. And this is where the initial idea was that I was trying to learn about more filmmakers, but since I was introducing the ones in the beginning, I only introduced things that I knew. So it was like, how can I learn more? Is ask other people. So then I started to learn about all other people. So so that's where like the sort of data comes in. Whenever I would give a presenter, they were kind of free to pick whatever they wanted. There was no restrictions in that regard, but I wanted to have certain items that were going to exist that we could share, like the budget, the crew size, the director's age, and then some other like descriptive items, and as well as the process behind it, like how did they make the film? Like Christopher Nolan shot it on Saturdays for like 1.5 years, and they used like black and white film, whatever. So this was from 2009 to 2012. Since then, I've been working in video industry and film. Worked for Google for a while. So my last team at Google, I was working with developers, and now that I'm on my own freelancing, I've taken an interest in like building back up this first features organization, which I started in school, which is kind of close to my passion in life, which is making films, and I have a video company now. So I've been using Coda as a way to, so it's at a very like premier state now. Is that the right word? Like, there's not much to it. It's essentially a spreadsheet, but the goal is to get the community to kind of interact with the films and to add submissions and to give reviews and get sort of a collective, I guess, opinion or truth about, you know, what we're seeing, and also to like
From like the audience, right?
from the audience and from the audience, from people that love film, which I assume a lot of people are kind of fans of film, no matter what field you're in. So that's sort of the idea, to integrate all these things into a Coda doc. So where it is now, there's just a lot of like data items. Okay, so I have like just the master spreadsheet that has the film name, the director name, and the year. These are now these are in order on the master sheet, just the year. But you have some of the ideas. Some of these aren't filled in, and this is just kind of overview of what I was kind of discussing, which I thought was important. So the Coda doc would basically allow myself and other collaborators I'm working with on films, whether we're researching for a film or whatever sort of project, to then kind of look at different films within a certain budget, within a certain crew size, or just kind of compare stylistic things within a film, just to analyze from like a numbers and data perspective, but also from a creative perspective and from a sense where we actually are getting feedback from people within our core circle that we invite, or whether it's within our core circle that we can choose in Coda, or a larger audience. So this is them listed by year, starting in 1919. You can go down. This is by director, and this is by country. And this is kind of a good and important thing to look at, because most of my inputs are from the USA, and I don't know every country on Earth about like the film there. But if I can get somebody to tell me about a film from a certain country that they're passionate about, and they say, I like this film for this reason, and they can describe that, then I would be interested to watch it. And then here's like my budget. So right now, this is sort of the display. So the furthest I've come along in the display is, these are all the ones I have trailers for. Let me try to find one that has like a lot of stuff.
The Maltese Falcon budget was $6,000.
Oh, what was that?
That's crazy.
Or was that high? So like, there's another thing you can do. I guess you can do this in Excel too. Is, you know, you have the budget and you have like the gross US or gross worldwide, to kind of compare these things. There's a lot of different things you can look at, and I'm sort of experimenting, but the reviewing of the film is the most important thing to me, and that's essentially why I started to build this, is to get a sense of how I can also work with clients from like a review perspective of like, when I'm doing a project for you, if it's not necessarily a film where it's so sort of, you know, it's careful when if you're doing a project like in the arts or whatever, where it's kind of subjective and you're working with people, it's kind of tough to have a really objective review. But if you're doing it for, you know, certain concrete purposes, I think you can define it. So I initially created something like this to work with clients, to have a way for them to review a film and give them feedback. So what I want to integrate in this is like can I have multiple people contribute to a review, whether it's on like a 5-star review, which is the classic sort of review that we have in the film or video or rating industry. Can I have more than one person give the review, or can we upvote the reviews, or however it works? I'm trying to figure out then like how can I parcel out the sharing of this? But also in creating this doc, like Greg was mentioning about pulling data, like a lot of this information I was playing with pulling from Wikipedia, but I need to basically kind of filter that down exactly what, because if I pull just like Wikipedia from a film, it gives me everything. So I need to be able, I'm sure you can do this, but I'm not a developer, I don't know like what's possible. I have ideas on what to do. A lot of the stuff being pulled from Mybnb, a lot of stuff from Wikipedia. I don't want to have to like put all this manually in. So it's another reason why I sort of want to reach out to the community and be like, you tell me what I should look at. And then it's like the community can then see, like, especially I think from people from different countries are like, I'm from this country, I know this film, let me write my review on this film, you know, so, or whatever. So the goal is to sort of expand the community and get us all to see more and have more of a world view of film. Because as you saw in this trailer, like when I made this in like 2007 or 8, like these are all like pretty classically known films, like all like male directors and like pretty small field. Like it's not a world view of cinema, and that's I think more interesting to get everybody's sort of thing, and I think film inspires us in every art, so I think it's useful for just. Well, my main thing is figuring out like how much Coda can help, or how Coda is different from if this makes sense as a Coda doc or as something else. But I do think being able to filter these things this way and to have interactions, I'm just trying to figure out like what's possible. I guess we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Any questions for Chris?
How do you share your data with the community? Like, are you sharing the Coda link, or you have a separate site?
Yeah, I should have just showed that. It's basically that main thing is on the website of the.
So the Coda link is on the website.
So the Coda, and you can interact with it now and do all things, but I guess it doesn't make the changes to the doc, so that's good. So like people can play around and search. So yeah, that's what I probably should have showed, which is like on the website now, so you know the director that you're looking for, or you know the film you're looking for, you can search that in the top search bar. It'll find it if it's in my Coda doc.
And you're allowing people to go in and put those comments in?
Well, right now there's no integration, but like, I don't know if this went on.
Try to see the comments on the film.
I guess this one, the projector went off. So if you go on films here, this is on the website, you can search a film, like, or search a director, like someone give me a director name.
I wanted to see the Jarmiolowski.
No. So you search Jarmiolowski, then you have a high, and then this is all the info on it. So the budget, 60,000, gross, 3.2 million, trailer, synopsis, runtime. Yeah, that's a great first feature. I even had, the format on there anyway. So how can I see this though? Is there a way I can see this in one of my other views right now from the search? Or
You mean like clicking on a different section to see a view?
because yeah, so like I have it listed. Pie is also in this trailers one. But like on the website, I have just integrated with the master doc. And if you search up here, it'll find anything in my doc. But I was having trouble, like if I go like by director, when I search in here by director, it doesn't come up because it does only the line item, which is the beginning, which is like the title of the film. So that I have to make a separate one for just the directors, and then I was like confused on how then will that connect with everything. So like the search in here is a little different than, but the main search does everything you need. And the master film list, right now there are 103 only. There's a lot more added, of course, and have ideas, but that's kind of where I'm at. But I will eventually, because we showed about 25 films at the new school when I was there. So for all those, I have the intro notes, the like, you know, the sort of all the background and information for all those. So I'm going to be inputting all that information in. I used to have a website back when I was doing it, but now I'm relaunching. So the logo, the UI and everything, the UX, UI, everything is going to all be redesigned and rebuilt. This is the old sort of way it looked. I just threw the new Coda doc into it. But I'm really interested because like this would have been great to have when I was running it, because I could have, I think it sort of inspired me to think bigger about the whole thing, about how I can reach kind of more like globally with the idea of it. And I first thought I'm just going to include the first feature on this because that's what it's about. But as I've been building the Coda doc, I'm thinking, oh, I want to like, okay, this is their first feature, but what are they known for? Like, how do you know this director? This director is actually known for this really famous movie. But you don't really necessarily know that unless I include that. So I'm going to have to make a film probably list of just all the films and then have it as you have with the categories of like, you know, right now, like, because it's not like a drop down, you know, you can pick the general all thing. It's just like, because I thought there was just going to be one done film, but now I'm realizing you need to have more context. So this could get larger and larger and larger, and that's where like I'm thinking like the more collaboration involved in this, it could become a huge sort of thing.
That's a great like approach to it. Like, we know Goodfellas, we know what Scorsese's first film was.
Yeah.
Most people probably know. I didn't know until you showed me.
Yeah.
And that would be like my reason to go to your document. I want to see them. You know what I mean? That would be the motivation to do it.
And yeah, I mean, personally, we started it because it's like we're all. When you're doing your first film, the more I researched, I realized like people put a lot into their first film. Like it's their first, it's like your first baby or whatever. You're putting all your energy, all your effort, all your passion. You're really like trying to do the best that you can. So when you look at these first films, people are like more clever with how they design an idea because there's restrictions. So like when you have restrictions, you can sort of play with. You're forced to like use your best mind power.
One question. So if you open this for many people to collaborate and tackle, then there might be some problem with data, like version control. Some people accidentally change.
Yeah, that's my biggest question is how can is there a way for me just to make it so that people can just give like a 5-star review of the film without changing anything else, but then have a summary of all those, like the average review of those films. It's tough because it's like, yeah, you know, if you do that, then it's just like you become like Rotten Tomatoes. It's like, what's the difference? But so I'm really focusing more on the art and craft of the filmmaking and trying to integrate those pieces where it's like style. Because a lot of, like, this is really where it came from, like the idea was like, okay, it's the films that you don't know about, the directors you don't know about, but it's the style of how they did it. And it's tough to then assign potentially like attributes names or names to those things. So I'm just figuring it out. But it's inspiring to work in Coda, so it's coming together.
So, thank you, Chris, for sending me your two first features and his doc. And this is a gift for our speakers. You're getting these one-of-a-kind Coda t-shirts. Say Coda on the back, and these are literally one-of-a-kind. Like we've made like 20 of these, I think. So here we go. Yeah.
I didn't get the job, but I got it.
Yeah, hopefully. There you go. And I was gonna do my thing right now, but like the pizza came, so why don't we spend like 5 minutes, grab some pizza, come back to your desk, and then I'll do my bit. Some new features are coming out.
I got a puppy, you got a cat.
I'm gonna put the pizza over, guys. Just gonna kind of go back their seats, and this is gonna be kind of like a little bit of live workshop part of the meetup. So if you want to follow along with your laptop, that's great. If not, you don't have to. You can just follow my screen. I'm just going to walk you guys through some new features that came out recently, like one that just came out today, actually, and then stuff that's coming in the pipeline that no one has seen yet. So you'll be the first to see. And I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be showing you guys this stuff, but what the heck? Yeah, one second.
Is the camera rolling?
Camera is, but this will come out probably much after this. All right, so the first thing is I created a doc just for this meetup. So if you go back into the, you go check out the email I sent with all the meetup stuff, like you probably saw something that looks like this. So if you want to open this doc for yourself, you just click on the first link in the meetup like doc page, and this will just open up the link I'm going to go through right now. So this doc, one kind of handy trick about Coda docs, you can present them. So I'm putting double quotes. When you open a Coda doc, it looks like this. If you click on these two little arrows in the top right, you can actually present your doc, which is really nice during meetings because it just gets rid of the sidebar, gets rid of the toolbar. It's very, very clean and tidy, which we do a lot internally to present at meetings. And yeah, each of your sections actually ends up becoming a slide in your doc. So notice how I have 3 sections here on the left-hand side. When I present my doc, those 3 sections are now like the slides in my doc. And all those sections become like clickable down here. So just like one little trick that not many people know about is that you can present your doc. So this makes it look almost like little slides in a way. The one thing that's cool is like when you present a doc on like Google Slides, like you can still edit the doc like while it's in present mode. So if you're taking notes, again, this is like really useful when you're doing meetings because as you're presenting a doc and like someone says like, "Hey Al, this looks cool," you can like edit the doc while it's like in present mode.
And this feature is live?
This is live. This has been around for a while, but like very few people know about it because it's like, what are these little arrows right here? I have no idea. And then once you put
I love it.
Yeah, it expands. Oh, you use it? Awesome.
I don't use it, but I will use it because
Okay.
I present a lot.
Okay, sweet. Another thing is that has anyone heard of the .new domain? So Google actually owned the .new domain, and Coda was one of the first partners for this. So if you go to coda.new, it actually redirects to create a new Coda doc for you. So if I just go to Coda right now in my browser, it just creates a brand new doc, assuming you have a Coda account, and you can start jamming away and creating a doc. So another like nice handy shortcut. I'm actually gonna look up .new domain like you can see here. Here we go. So this was like a press announcement that came out I think a few weeks ago. And so here are all the new things that you can do. Like if you do docs.new, creates a new Google Doc. Slide.new, Google Slides. This is actually just for Google stuff. There's a bunch of non-Google stuff too.
It's an extra. What's new now?
Good question. View.new. Nothing.
Endless loop.
Endless loop.
I just put in docs.new and then
What's
To register a .inc
Sorry.
domain name.
Oh, here we go. So here's some popular apps that you can do, like Canva. Has anyone ever used Canva before? Big user of Canva. So do Canva.nu because you Canva in the doc, Canva Canvas. There's Coda's right there. Yeah, so Google owns this domain, and we basically working with them so that we can have Coda.nu, which creates the Coda doc. So this is a nice little handy shortcut there. All right, so back to the Meetup doc. Last week, the CEO of Coda, Shishir Malhotra, he gave a his first ever kind of like live stream of like things that are coming out of the pipeline for 2020. So I put a link to that YouTube video here. There's actually a crowdcast, which is like this new like
Hello everyone. Welcome to
webinar
our Year of the
platform.
Maker session.
So you can check this out on our YouTube channel.
So Shashir, I do want to do just a quick here.
Marie on the left is like one of our kind of like customer education champions. So she leads all our webinars. I'm actually going to be doing one with her this Friday about how like the differences between spreadsheets and Coda Docs and how you can translate between both platforms. So that should be on this Friday, I think, afternoon. Some other useful links is I think Greg. I don't know if Chris mentioned this, but our Coda community is pretty strong. It's like a discourse forum, so there's a lot of people answering questions, asking questions about how to do things in Coda Docs. And this is at community.coda.io. And actually, if you ask a question here, you'll probably get an answer quicker than if you ask our own support. So our support channel is just like this bottom right-hand question mark, which is like a lot of apps use these days, just to like, it's this intercom. You know, you can ask a question to anyone on our support team. But generally speaking, like the community actually answers questions faster than we can sometimes. So that's how we actually direct people to the community more than our support once in a while. So that's another useful link. Template Gallery is something I actually manage. This is just like a template, a gallery of 300 plus templates that are for professional and personal use cases of Coda. One of my templates that I'm very proud of is a very simple template that helps you keep track of your Lyft and Uber expenses over time. Like, have you ever wanted to know like how much you've spent on Lyft and Uber like last month, last year? Never. Okay. Yeah. It's astronomical probably, but I've always like, why is it so hard to do that in like Uber and Lyft and apps itself? And so I created this doc. It's actually only one section. And you have to integrate it with your Gmail. But what it does is it pulls in, oh, this actually broke, I think. Let's see if I can do it all the time. Everything. No. But basically what it does is it pulls in your email and looks for your Lyft and Uber receipts. And then you can basically pick like what time period you want to see your Lyft and Uber receipts, and it adds it up, and it adds up like your dollar amounts.
Can you do the same thing with like credit card statements?
You can. So what I did was I did some like fancy formulas to basically search for like Lyft and Uber stuff. But if you want to, you might create a formula to like look for my Chase credit card statements and then add up the total like compensation. So what this is doing behind the scenes, I wish this actually kind of broke. I don't know why it broke. But what it's doing is it's like it's taking the entire contents of your email in that Lyft email or Uber email. And then it pulls out like the dollar amounts and the location, all that kind of stuff. And then I wrote I wrote a formula to basically parse out just like the dollar amount and like some other stuff. So you can like create a table of all your Lyft and Uber receipts. Yeah.
Do you guys have an integration with Zendesk at all?
Not yet. So we have packs with our native integration to other third-party services like Gmail, Calendar, Slack. This is using the Gmail pack. You can see there's a little Gmail icon here. But we're constantly trying to produce more packs. I think Zendesk is like a new platform for this.
Zendesk is on Zapier.
Yeah, Zendesk is up. A lot of apps are on Zapier too, and we connect with Zapier.
Would I be able to take this template and alter it to do something like use the work you've already done and apply it to my seamless receipts, so I can see how shameful that is.
Oh, well, that's even worse than Uber and Lyft.
Yeah, I'm gonna see what happened with my doc here. So there's a few hidden columns. I'm gonna show you guys behind the scenes what this doc does. So let's actually try to. I'm not sure what's gonna happen if I sync. Oh, here's what happened. All right, I'm gonna sync this and see what happens. Hopefully some magic happens and it actually works. So what this is doing is it's looking at my email all time, and it's probably gonna take a long time. So, but let's take a look and see what's happening here. So this is what happens when you do like a live demo. Alright, I need to fix this up. Okay, so here. Okay, here we go. So I wrote a formula. So one of my columns is called type. So the email should show up here once it syncs. I don't know why it's not failed. Alright, I'm going to do this right now, but basically what I'm doing is, one of my formulas is, it only looks through my email and it only finds emails that have subject lines that start with your ride with Lyft and your email is like Uber receipts. And so this table is actually filtered to only show I'm not quite sure what I did, to be honest, but it did work at one point. Essentially scanning all my email, finding ones that have Uber and Lyft in the from email address, and then the subject line is like, all Lyft and Uber's emails have like Lyft Prime receipt or Uber receipts in the subject line. And so I'm able to filter my emails just for those subject lines. And so it parses out a lot of my like personal email. The ride cost, I think this is where some more magic happens. So I found out that, like, in the email address, what I'm doing is I'm finding for the word total in the Lyft, in the Uber email, and once it finds that word total, I do some hacky things with like a middle formula and text formula to basically pull out just the dollar amount that goes right after the total text, and that throws that number into the cost column. So you're basically searching and targeting out for total, taking that dollar amount, and it throws it into the cost column, and then you can treat that as a number.
So I could theoretically go into your type and just change the type to be like seamless.
Seamless, yeah.
And look for whatever text is just before the final cost.
Yeah.
It changes in your next column, and it would effectively do the same.
Yeah.
Just
what I did was I looked at the email side to side like this to make sure my formula was like properly parsing out the email body or email content or email body. Because it might be like, the seamless email might say something like total amount or sum or something. So you want to make sure you use the right keyword.
But to his point, it's like essentially the formula is pretty much the same. It's just you got to find the keyword.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you might, these numbers, like you might have to clear out these numbers too, because the middle formula, this is the same way that mid works in Excel. It takes like, starting from a certain character count, like in this case, 8, then it pulls like 6 digits after that 8th position.
Gotcha.
So depending on how the seamless number is structured, you might have to do some hacking with these numbers.
So basically, after total, there's like space dollar sign.
Yeah, there might be a space,
like
yeah.
8 characters, whatever.
Yeah, it might be 7 for seamless, it might be like 2 for delivery or something. Yeah. So this took some time experimenting, but for me, I was just trying to figure out like how much I spent on Lyft and Uber, like since the beginning of time, because I know all the receipts end in my inbox. What are we talking about this? Oh, the template gallery. Yeah, so like I basically manage template gallery, 300+ templates. There's all different kinds of things here. So definitely check that out. Okay, what is left? Oh, and then is Eric here? Oh, he's right there. So Eric, he's from Bubble. We actually are co-organizers of the No Code New York City Meetup. This is the Meetup page. I recommend checking this out. We have our first launch event next Tuesday, I believe. Next Wednesday?
Yeah.
I think it's Tuesday. I can show what's going on right here.
Yeah, it's the last Tuesday of the month.
Yeah. So this is actually a kickoff event we're doing with Product Hunt. So they've been helping us kind of get the word out about this event. We're going to be talking about things beyond Coda, like Bubble, Zapier, everything under the sun behind no code. So yeah, check that out if you're interested. Yeah, so that's kind of some high-level things about what's going on, I guess, with Coda and other important links. Now, what's new with Coda? So these are actually links I pulled from our Coda community. So we recently launched checklists and quotes. So for instance, if I want to add a checklist right into Coda, I can just go to the plus sign and there is, I believe, actually it's a checkbox. I think it's just like that. Yeah, so you can now like create checklists, and if you check the check item in the checklist, it will just get crossed off. You can also put indented checklists too, if you want. Just like a nice little thing. A lot of people use Coda to take meeting notes, and so they found that using checklists in your notes is really useful. So that's why we have this little feature.
Are they structured data? Can you pull them?
So these are not structured. That's the important thing. So unlike Coda tables, these are just like free-form text. Yeah, they're not. You can reference these in like a variable in Coda. That's why I was explaining. Like there's a separate control which is called checkbox, and this can actually be called a name. So I think that's how I call this Al's checkbox. And if I say this is like my new checkbox, and this one is slightly different from this checkbox, in that if I click on this checkbox, I can actually reference that in a formula. So if I say like equals if Pal's checkbox equals true, then hooray, it's true. If not, then it's not checked. So Al's checkbox, this thing right here, is just this checkbox right here. So if I click on that, this if statement will change the text that shows up in my doc. But you can't do that with these things because this is just like for note-taking.
Just to link those to other parts of the document. You can select the text to add a hyperlink.
This, I think so. Let's take a look. If you can. So this check, what is this called? This checklist in this checklist is you can link to other things or documents.
You just made that one checkbox. Can you, that formula that you did, can it like do other things in other sections? Like if this is checked, I don't know, create the table with this row and like this header or something. Like how advanced?
Yeah, I mean this is like, so imagine this is kind of like having like a cell in Excel where Google Sheets being named. So if you wanted to create a row, you might have to use like an automation for that. But I can't think of a way that you could like check this and automatically creates a row in a table. It would have to be like an automation, which is like through this side panel here, which like is a rule you can say like when Al's checkbox is checked, add a row to Michelle's table.
I actually see that being the kind of thing that you put like in a report or view with like extra filters so that you don't have to go like monkey with the sort of core filter that you brought and it's fine what that needs to be. So they can then say like, oh, I just want to see like maybe this year's data and they sort of plug.
Yeah, I'll be perfectly honest. I don't use these checkboxes that often in the canvas itself. I'm using them more in my tables. But I have seen people that like will put something like this at the very top of their doc. And it's like, did you read my doc? And so you can click on it and like that would indicate that like someone actually read your doc. And that and this formula right here would like be like, oh, if this is true, that means like everyone read your doc.
So we send a notification to releases, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Sorry, could you show again how you created the checklist? Use the square brackets?
Yep. I'm going to bring up the post right here so you can see more. Okay. So in this text button,
Okay.
it's just right here.
Checklist.
Checklist.
Okay, thank you.
But the shortcut is just like left
Yeah, that's
bracket,
easy.
right bracket.
That's easy to
space.
remember, yeah.
Yeah. The next thing is like, this is actually more for like those who use Coda Docs to write. If you have, I have this really amazing quote to tell everyone. So if you want to call this out in a long paragraph of text, historically what people have done is like go like this and then go to code block. And it's like, it separates it from the rest of the text. But now we actually have two separate types of quote blocks. So you have one that's like a block quote, which is kind of like a medium when you have like that left-hand like gray bar. It makes it longer so it looks a little here. So it will highlight this thing. So if I have something up here, like this is my special quote below, then this kind of gets a little bit called out, and people know like, oh, this is like a quote from Al or something. If you want like a bigger whole quote, you can actually do this one right here, and it makes it a little bigger. And just this is like more closer to what Medium has when you do full quotes there. So I started using this a lot when I have to like quote something from someone else's. And this is also, you can also use keyboard shortcuts for this. I think it's Shift Command period for the block quote, and then Shift Command apostrophe for the full quote. And this is like above here, you see like the keyword. Yep, so that's the checklist and quotes. Another pack that was launched was the Google Docs pack. So this is actually a really neat pack. If you have 10 individual Google Docs and you use the Google Doc pack to import those docs into your Coda Doc, it will actually merge those 10 Google Docs into one doc, and those are all, I think those all become sections in your doc. So like really common use cases, like you have a one-on-one Google Doc with all your like reports, your manager, and instead of having those in like separate Google Docs, you might want to roll those up into one Coda Doc. Each of those sections becomes a new Google Doc.
So can you update each of the sections within Coda, and that's still synchronizing with the one-on-one people?
Oh no, so that it doesn't synchronize. It only pulls from Google Docs. It doesn't push it back into Google Docs.
But is the doc still editable in Coda, or do you prevent that?
Oh, so you're not actually editing Google Docs in Coda. The
So
content.
it's a read-only. It's a read-only thing.
No, it's actually, well, so it's a read-only sync, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is that you stop using your Google Docs and you start editing your content.
So it's one
like
time,
you're migrating.
like
It's an
import.
It's like migrating.
Import,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like a one-time migration
Got
to
it.
your Coda Doc. It's also a free pack, so you don't have to be on any paid tier to use it. Lastly, what actually just launched today was word and character count, something super small. I can't even know how to use it yet. Apparently there's like some doc setting thing. Oh, okay, here. So click on the like your icon, and then statistics, and it just tells you how many words are in each of your sections. And this is kind of cool. Oh, it shows you while you're typing, like how many. Let's see. Basically the time. Yep, this is like, people have asked about statistics from their docs, so this is just how another nice way to show some stats about your writing. Cool. Well, thanks everyone. If you're sticking around, if not, just take off and stay warm.
Thank you.